Cardiac surgeon warns, this sleep habit is damaging your heart. After 60, it's a sobering thought, but if you are making even a single one of the silent mistakes that I am about to discuss tonight, your heart may not endure to see the morning light. It's a truly alarming statistic, but most individuals your age, and indeed many younger than that, are unknowingly making at least 3 of these potentially perilous errors on a regular basis. I understand that this statement might sound dramatic, and you might be tempted to dismiss it, but I implore you to bear with me for just a few moments because the information I am about to impart could genuinely be the key to saving your life. Tonight, my focus will be on illuminating the subtle, insidious mistakes that occur while you are deeply asleep. These are the errors that elude our conscious notice, the ones that do not manifest as overt pain, do not trigger any audible alarms, and crucially, do not afford us the luxury of a second chance. More importantly, still, I will guide you through the practical steps you can take to rectify these issues, ensuring your heart is protected before your head even touches the pillow. Let me begin by sharing a story that continues to resonate deeply with me, a narrative that underscores the critical importance of this conversation. Not too long ago, a gentleman in his late 60s presented himself at my office, expecting what he believed to be a routine checkup. He was an active individual, still engaged in driving and working part-time, and he confidently described his general well-being as quite good for his age. His blood pressure registered as slightly elevated, but nothing that raised immediate alarms. His cholesterol levels were on the borderline, yet he considered them manageable. When I inquired about the quality of his sleep, he responded with a shrug, a gesture that spoke volumes about his resignation, stating, "Not great, but who does at my age?" It is precisely this sentiment, this acceptance of poor sleep as an inevitable consequence of aging, that I find more dangerous than most people truly comprehend. Tragically, mere 2 weeks later, his wife discovered him unresponsive in their bed. There was no prior warning, no agonizing chest pain during the night, no frantic emergency call placed in the darkness, just an absolute chilling silence. In my subsequent conversation with his distraught wife, she shared a phrase that I have encountered far too many times in my career. He said he was just tired. We thought it was normal. Herein lies a profound truth, a reality that is rarely articulated with the clarity it demands. Your heart, contrary to common belief, is not at its safest when you are asleep. In fact, for a significant portion of individuals over the age of 55, the nocturnal hours represent a period when their heart is subjected to its most insidious and dangerous forms of stress. This is not the palpable, urgent stress associated with vigorous physical exertion or intense emotional upheaval, but rather the quiet, cumulative stress that infiltrates and builds silently while we are unconscious. During sleep, our bodies undergo subtle yet significant physiological shifts. Blood pressure naturally fluctuates, breathing patterns transform, oxygen saturation levels can dip, and seemingly minor, inconsequential habits can, when combined in the stillness of the night, morph into life-threatening situations. I am Dr. Robert Harrison, and for a considerable number of decades, my professional life has been dedicated to the intricate study of what transpires within the human heart during the crucial period of sleep. I have meticulously reviewed and analyzed thousands of cases that involve cardiac events occurring at night, instances of sudden, unexpected death during sleep, and subtle heart rhythm disturbances that conspicuously emerge only after midnight. And I can state with an absolute, unwavering certainty that the vast majority of these devastating events are not random occurrences. Instead, they are the direct consequence of preventable mistakes, errors in judgment or habit that individuals are often completely unaware they are perpetuating. Let me draw your attention to the first such mistake, a practice that is remarkably common and, paradoxically, almost universally believed to be the correct course of action. The very first mistake I wish to highlight is going to bed in a state of dehydration. A great many people, particularly those in their senior years, will consciously and deliberately restrict their fluid intake as evening approaches, driven by the understandable desire to avoid nocturnal awakenings to use the restroom. On the surface, this approach appears entirely logical and practical. However, within the complex ecosystem of the body, a profoundly different and detrimental process is unfolding. When you are dehydrated, the viscosity of your blood increases, meaning it becomes thicker. This thickening makes it significantly more demanding for your heart to pump blood efficiently throughout your system. Consequently, your overall circulation begins to decelerate. Your body's ability to regulate blood pressure becomes unstable, and your inherent risk of forming blood clots escalates. During the nighttime hours, and especially between approximately 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., your heart rate naturally decreases, and your blood pressure experiences fluctuations. This confluence of factors, thicker blood combined with slower circulation, creates precisely the physiological conditions that are most conducive to heart attacks and strokes. I have had patients confide in me that they actively avoid drinking water after dinner, believing they are safeguarding their sleep quality. What they fail to grasp is that in doing so, they might very well be placing their heart in a precarious and dangerous position. This is not an endorsement for guzzling water immediately before retiring for the night. Rather, it is a critical warning against the complete avoidance of fluids for several hours leading up to sleep, a practice that represents a silent and profound danger. A small, modest glass of water, approximately half a cup, consumed about 30 to 60 minutes before bed, can indeed make a meaningful and protective difference. It aids in maintaining a smooth and efficient blood flow during the night's most vulnerable periods. However, and this point is of paramount importance, achieving adequate hydration on its own is insufficient if you are simultaneously committing the second critical mistake, which pertains directly to your sleeping posture. The second grave mistake is sleeping in a completely flat position on your back, a posture that your heart may simply be unable to tolerate. Lying flat on your back can feel entirely natural and, for many, supremely comfortable. For years, countless individuals have adopted this sleeping position without a second thought. However, as we progress through life and age, the heart's inherent capacity to manage fluid shifts undergoes significant changes. When you lie in a supine or flat position, bodily fluids tend to redistribute themselves, accumulating towards the chest region. This accumulation can lead to an increase in pressure within your lungs, and consequently make it more arduous for your heart to perform its vital pumping function. For individuals who already have high blood pressure, suffer from heart failure, or even possess a mild undiagnosed weakness in their heart muscle, this supine sleeping position can prove to be remarkably dangerous. Allow me to pose a critical question to you. Have you ever awakened in the dead of night feeling a distinct sensation of shortness of breath, or have you found yourself needing to sit upright to breathe more comfortably? If so, please understand that this sensation is not merely a manifestation of anxiety, nor is it simply an unavoidable aspect of aging. Rather, it is a clear indication that your heart is struggling to cope with the physiological demands of nighttime conditions. I recall a patient who habitually slept with an excessive number of pillows stacked beneath her head. When I inquired about this rather unusual sleeping arrangement, she confessed that she didn't have a definitive reason. It was simply the only way she felt comfortable. In essence, her body had intuitively discovered a solution that her conscious mind had not yet grasped. By elevating her upper body, she was inadvertently reducing the strain on her heart. She wasn't being particular or eccentric. She was instinctively compensating for an underlying physiological problem. A slight elevation of the upper body, even by just a few inches, can significantly alleviate the nocturnal cardiac stress that your heart experiences. You do not need to sleep in a rigidly upright position, nor do you require specialized or expensive equipment. Even a gentle, subtle incline can substantially aid your heart and lungs in working together with greater efficiency and less effort throughout the night. However, even the most optimized sleeping posture will not offer complete protection if you are falling prey to the third mistake, which is one of the most frequently overlooked, yet profoundly dangerous, errors of all. The third critical mistake involves the consumption of the wrong type of aid before bed. Sleep aids have become incredibly prevalent in modern society. These range from over-the-counter remedies and nighttime pain relievers to melatonin supplements and prescribed sleep medications. While many of these are often perceived as harmless, a significant number of them possess the capacity to interfere with normal breathing patterns, to lower vital oxygen levels in the body, or to disrupt the delicate rhythm of the heart, particularly in older adults. I have had the opportunity to review an extensive number of cases where individuals have passed away peacefully in their sleep, only for further investigation to reveal that a nighttime medication played a contributing and sometimes decisive role in the tragic outcome. The most insidious aspect of these medications is their tendency to bypass obvious warning symptoms. You do not experience acute pain, nor do you jolt awake gasping for air. Instead, your heart rhythm simply becomes progressively unstable, or your oxygen saturation drops just enough to cross a critical threshold, thereby triggering a fatal event. It is common for individuals to explain their use of these aids by stating, "I only take it when I really need sleep." Yet, the harsh reality is that sometimes, even a single instance of use can be enough to have serious repercussions. This inherent risk is further amplified if you are prone to loud snoring, if you experience pauses in breathing during sleep, or if you consistently wake up feeling unrefreshed, even after what appears to be a full night's sleep. This is precisely why it is so imperative to ask a very specific and probing question when considering any nighttime medication or supplement. The question should not merely be, "Is this safe?" but rather, "Is this truly safe for my heart while I am sleeping?" If the answer to this latter question is not unequivocally clear and reassuring, then that should serve as a significant red flag. However, it is not solely medication that people tend to overlook in their nighttime routines. The fourth mistake is directly related to symptoms that individuals have, over time, become accustomed to ignoring. The fourth mistake is the act of dismissing nighttime symptoms that have become an accepted part of your routine. Humans possess an extraordinary capacity for adaptation. We have a remarkable tendency to normalize discomfort, to rationalize away unpleasant sensations. We often tell ourselves that poor sleep, persistent snoring, waking up with night sweats, or feeling perpetually tired are simply unavoidable consequences of aging. However, your heart does not adapt in the same way that your conscious mindset does. It tolerates stress, enduring it stoically, until such a point that it can simply no longer cope. Loud snoring, audible gasping sounds during sleep, awakening with a palpably racing heart, persistent morning headaches, or an overwhelming sense of fatigue are not merely inconsequential sleep disturbances. They are, in fact, critical signs of significant nighttime cardiac strain. One of the most prevalent and perilous conditions associated with these symptoms is sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is characterized by repeated episodes of oxygen deprivation during the night, which forces the heart to work under immense duress, attempting to compensate for the reduced oxygen levels. Over an extended period, this chronic strain dramatically elevates the risk of heart attack, stroke, and tragically sudden death during sleep. What makes sleep apnea so exceptionally dangerous is the fact that a great many individuals who suffer from it are entirely unaware of their condition. It is often a sleeping partner who first notices the loud snoring or the unsettling pauses in breathing, while the person experiencing these events has no recollection of them. I once asked a patient why he had never mentioned his persistent snoring. He chuckled and replied that his wife complained about it incessantly, but he had always dismissed it as an insignificant nuisance. This, however, was far from the truth. Once he received a diagnosis for his sleep apnea and underwent appropriate treatment, his heart rhythm stabilized and his overall energy levels saw a remarkable improvement. To ignore these nighttime symptoms is not a display of resilience or toughness. It is, in fact, a posture of profound vulnerability. And all of these preceding points lead us inexorably towards the final mistake, the one that acts as a unifying factor, often determining whether your heart truly receives the restorative rest it so desperately needs at night. But before we delve into this culminating error, allow me to emphasize a crucial point with absolute clarity. None of the 5 mistakes we have discussed are perceived as dangerous in the moment they are occurring, and that precisely is what renders them so potentially lethal. They do not inflict pain, they do not instill fear, they simply lay the groundwork, setting the stage for far more serious consequences. Now we arrive at the 5th and final mistake. In many respects, this is the mistake that ultimately dictates whether all the other preceding errors escalate into genuine dangers or remain as minor inconveniences. Because even if you diligently ensure proper hydration, maintain an optimal sleeping angle, prudently avoid risky medications, and possess the discernment to recognize early warning signs, there remains one crucial factor that can quietly and insidiously undermine all your efforts. And this factor is something that the overwhelming majority of people perceive as either entirely normal or simply unavoidable. The 5th mistake is the act of going to sleep with a heart that is still under duress. Most individuals conceptualize stress as an exclusively daytime problem, a consequence of demanding deadlines, financial pressures, complex family dynamics, or upsetting news and arguments. However, what very few people truly grasp is the profound impact that the mental state with which you enter sleep has on your heart's behavior for the subsequent 6 to 8 hours. If you retire to bed feeling tense, anxious, angry, or mentally overstimulated, your autonomic nervous system does not simply shut down the moment you close your eyes. Stress hormones, such as cortisol and adrenaline, remain at elevated levels. Your heart rate continues to beat at a higher tempo than is physiologically appropriate for rest. Your blood pressure fails to exhibit the natural, healthy dip that it should during the nocturnal period, and consequently, your heart is prevented from achieving the deep, restorative rest it so desperately needs. I have witnessed this pattern repeat itself with alarming frequency. Patients present with seemingly acceptable diagnostic results during daylight hours, yet exhibit dangerously unstable heart rhythm disturbances that emerge exclusively during the night. Upon closer examination, the common thread uniting these cases is not always attributable to diet or exercise alone. It is, more often than not, the presence of unresolved stress that is carried into the sleep state. One patient poignantly described her experience by saying, "Nighttime is when my thoughts get loud." And precisely at that time, her heart was enduring its most significant strain. Your heart is intrinsically designed to slow down during the night. This is the period when cellular repair processes are most active, and when your nervous system optimally transitions into recovery and regeneration mode. However, this vital restorative function is severely hampered if your mind is relentlessly replaying worries, if you are passively scrolling through alarming news feeds, or if you are lying in bed in a state of heightened tension and alertness. From your heart's perspective, the source of stress is irrelevant, whether it originates from an immediate physical threat or a perceived mental one. The physiological response of your body remains remarkably similar. This explains, in part, why heart attacks, strokes, and fatal arrhythmias are so frequently observed in the early morning hours. The heart has been subjected to a full night of strenuous activity without the benefit of genuine rest, and eventually, something is bound to give way. The profound tragedy lies in the fact that most individuals never truly connect the dots between the emotional or mental state they experienced before bed and the subsequent physiological crisis that occurred while they slept. Now, let us turn our attention to the encouraging news, and this aspect is exceptionally important. This particular mistake is among the easiest to rectify, and it requires neither medication, nor specialized equipment, nor significant overhauls of your lifestyle. What it demands is a conscious decision, a deliberate choice to establish a buffer, a transition zone between the demands of your day and the restorative purpose of your sleep. Consider it as granting your heart explicit permission to stand down from its operational duties. A simple, dedicated wind-down routine, even if it spans a mere 20 minutes, can profoundly alter the way your heart functions throughout the night. This routine should consciously exclude arguments, emotionally taxing conversations, excessive doom scrolling through negative news, or engaging with television content that actively stimulates and keeps your mind alert. Instead, focus on dimming the lights, deliberately slowing your breathing rate, sitting in quiet contemplation, engaging in gentle stretching, practicing prayer or meditation, or simply focusing on slow, deep breaths. As your breathing rate slows, your heart rate invariably follows suit. This is not a philosophical concept. It is fundamental physiology. I often advise my patients to visualize themselves speaking directly to their heart as they prepare for sleep, reassuringly saying, "You are safe now. You are permitted to rest." While this might sound overly simplistic, perhaps even a little whimsical, the reality is that your nervous system is exquisitely responsive to signals, not to complex logical reasoning. Calm signals invariably elicit calm physiological responses. Now let's zoom out and consider the broader context, because it is here that all these individual pieces of advice coalesce into a cohesive and actionable strategy. None of the 5 mistakes we have discussed are inherently dramatic on their own, and that paradoxically is precisely what makes them so dangerous. They do not feel like emergencies. They feel like ordinary, everyday habits. Forgetting to drink water, sleeping in a flat position, taking a pill to force rest, ignoring persistent snoring, carrying the day's anxieties into bed. Each of these actions, in isolation, subtly contributes to an increase in nighttime cardiac strain. And when several of these seemingly minor transgressions occur in combination, night after night, year after year, the heart eventually reaches its breaking point. The individuals who experience sudden, life-threatening cardiac events in their sleep are rarely reckless or deliberately courting danger. They are, in fact, often simply continuing to do what they have always done, unaware of the cumulative toll it is taking. This is precisely why such a profound emphasis on awareness is so crucial, because once you understand the specific factors that place your heart at risk during sleep, you are empowered to implement small, manageable changes that can yield remarkably significant and life-saving effects. Therefore, let us make this practical for tonight. Before you head to bed, I urge you to perform 5 simple yet vital actions. Firstly, consume a small glass of water earlier in the evening. The objective is not to induce sleep disruptions, but simply to ensure adequate hydration to support your circulation. Secondly, adjust your sleeping position to ensure that your upper body is slightly elevated, particularly if you have ever experienced even a hint of shortness of breath during the night. Thirdly, take a moment to critically evaluate any medication or supplement you utilize to aid your sleep, and ask yourself with utmost seriousness whether it is genuinely safe for your heart during the nocturnal hours. Fourthly, pay close attention to any nighttime symptoms that you have been habitually dismissing as normal, and begin to take them seriously as potential indicators of underlying issues. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, provide your heart with a calm, quiet, and deliberate transition into the state of sleep. These are not extreme or burdensome measures. They are, in fact, gentle, corrective actions, and their significance is magnified because sleep is not merely a period of passive rest. Sleep is, in essence, a nightly test for your cardiovascular system. Every single night, your heart is evaluated under conditions of reduced oxygen availability, slowed circulation, and fluctuating physiological pressures. The ultimate goal, therefore, is not to make that test unnecessarily difficult. I wish to impart one final thought with you, a perspective that I sincerely hope more individuals will internalize and act upon much earlier in their lives. When something goes tragically wrong during sleep, there is no audible warning bell. There is no opportunity to push through the adversity and recover. This is precisely why the proactive measure of prevention holds immeasurably more importance than any reactive attempt at intervention. Your heart does not issue a notification when it has reached its limit. It simply ceases to function. However, the inverse of this truth is equally valid. When you provide your heart with the proper support and care during the nighttime hours, its resilience during waking hours is demonstrably enhanced. Improved sleep quality directly contributes to better blood pressure regulation, fosters greater stability in heart rhythm, reduces systemic inflammation, and leads to significant improvements in overall energy levels and mental clarity. Therefore, nighttime cardiac care should not be viewed as a separate or secondary concern from overall heart health. Instead, it represents the very bedrock upon which robust cardiovascular well-being is built. So, I pose this question to you, and I consider it to be of considerable importance. Which one of these insidious mistakes do you suspect you have been making, perhaps without even realizing it? I am not asking which one frightens you the most, but rather which one resonates with you in a way that feels uncomfortably familiar. Take a moment, be truly honest with yourself, and reflect. If this video has prompted you to reconsider your sleep habits and to approach your nightly routine with a newfound sense of awareness, I implore you to take one additional crucial step. Share this information with someone you care about, a spouse, a sibling, a close friend, because the most dangerous heart-related mistakes do not typically occur in public view. They transpire silently in the quiet darkness while we are most vulnerable, asleep. And in many instances, simple awareness, coupled with minor adjustments, can be enough to safeguard a precious life.